Good morning, guys. As I said in our video lecture this morning and is on the cover sheet, we are going to talk about a way of structuring a narrative story so that it really pulls the reader in and makes it simple and straightforward for them to know what's coming and when. This is kind of our basic storytelling structure, and it's going to be known by a couple of different names. I've got it mapped out up here, and I've got cards. Hold on one second. Okay. As it says in the assignment cover sheet, and as we're going to talk about today with this thing up here, this is called the inverted check mark of storytelling. It's sometimes called Freytag's pyramid. It was a German guy who had the same kind of literary theory. And this is basically one of the ways to format a narrative story. And as we've talked about our narrative cover sheet today, we're going to be making narrative stories moving forward after we come back from Thanksgiving break. So this is kind of a longer explanation of the structure of that, so that if you want to go back and look at it a couple times instead of just like one live lecture where I talk a little bit about it, you're able to do that. Okay, so I'm going to map some stuff out up here to give some background on this so we understand what we're doing with our own stories that we'll be creating very shortly. Okay, let me stick this on the wall. Is it in camera? Yes, okay. Cool. It's kind of tricky with the cameras and everything. I've never done this before. Okay, so the inverted checkmark storytelling. This is not new science in any way. You might have written stories like this in the past. A lot of times they'll teach like creative writing units and that kind of stuff. In this way, we're doing a reflective memoir, which is a kind of narrative writing. A reflective memoir incorporates elements both of like a critical memoir sense as well as exciting storytelling elements, and the inverted checkmark just helps us get to that realm. Okay, so the inverted checkmark story basically is a bunch of stuff is going to happen, lead to a big moment, and then there's going to be a conclusion after that big moment. Okay, so we're going to talk about the 5 different pieces of this storytelling thing. And when you have your story that you're going to tell the audience, you're going to think about how these pieces can be utilized using your story and this structure. Okay, first section, okay, is called the exposition section. This is going to be things like setting. This is going to be introduction to the reader. This is going to be characters. This is going to be the time period something's set, where it's set, what time of the year, the weather that's going on, any background details or information that's necessary for the reader to kind of establish themselves in the story. This is going to be a short section. We're not going to spend half of a 3-page essay writing the exposition section. This could be just a few sentences or a couple sentences to get us right into the story. Short expositions are good, but we still need some kind of basis as a character, as a reader, to know what the characters are doing and where they're coming from. Okay, I'm going to throw it up here on the board. Okay, so we got our exposition section. At this point where it starts going up the big check mark, usually we have some kind of setup or background, and then there's what's called like an inciting event. Basically, it means things are going okay, here's what's going on, where the story is set, and then something big happens. And the big thing that happens starts us on a different path, okay? And this is a traumatic event of some kind. Okay. Once we start going from the exposition section and up here, that is called the rising action section. Okay, this is when the events move to some big moment in the story. And this is going to be the meat of the story, the bulk of the story, hence the size of the line here. So the inverted checkmark storytelling structure is we start the readers off with an exposition section, then we have some kind of inciting event that moves us, okay, with rising action. Okay, events are going to build to some big dramatic moment in the story. Now, it doesn't always happen perfectly in life that you have like the big aha moment or where the light bulb goes on and everything makes sense, whatever. It's kind of a storytelling construct, but we are basically going to try to move the reader to a moment where they can see us having some sort of realization. It makes it very clear and discernible. So like if a reader was a college admission officer, they could read the story and know what exactly happened rather than trying to stretch it out over 6 months or something. It's a lot harder story to write and a lot less engaging, and we don't have enough time to do it. Okay, exposition, rising action, taking us to the big moment of the story. The big moment of the story is called the climax of the story. This is supposed to be like the most exciting moment in the story. And this should be easy. We should be able to really identify this clearly in a story. If we never have a big moment in the story, that's a problem. The climax, the most exciting moment in the story. So we have setup, rising action, big moment in the story. After that, we have a short section and then another short section. The immediate short section following the climax of the story is the falling action section. And that's just basically what happens right after the big moment, okay? And this would be here. So the action's already built to a big moment in the story, and now it's falling. Last section, Okay, this is the resolution or the theme, what we've learned, what the characters learned, what you learned in your memoir, the resolution section. Okay, all a story is a character is encountered with some kind of problem. Something gets in the way of them doing exactly what they want to do, and they have to address that. And how they address that is the story. And a character can have some kind of problem, and they can change for the better, and that's awesome. They can change for the worse, that's valid as well, or they could choose not to change. But either way, the distance between where you begin your story in like a personal narrative and where you finish here with the resolution, okay, is characterization and character development. We should see some sort of character arc or change in you throughout the course of your story. So if it's a reflective memoir, you should start at one place, things happen to you, you adjust to them, you have some big moment where you realize something new. After that, you kind of deal with the new situation, and then you have a resolution. And this is seeing the situation as some kind of lesson that can be learned, okay? That's the inverted check mark of storytelling. Now, talking about it in the abstract isn't necessarily the most helpful thing. So let's do like a 2-minute story to put up on this thing. And because I could say, hey, we could talk about F. Scott Fitzgerald, or we could talk about Ernest Hemingway, and we could map out Old Man and the Sea up here, or we could map out Pride and Prejudice from Jane Austen. That works for me as an English nerd, but not everybody reads like I do or likes to read or has read all these stories. So what I'm going to try to do is use an example that we all probably know and have seen so that we can talk about how it fits up here just for like a shorthand informal version of this. So let's do The Lion King today, which I'll bet everybody in this class or most people in this class has seen some version of it, new one, live action, the old one, whatever. Probably more people, unfortunately, than have read For Whom the Bell Tolls by Hemingway. Okay, this pyramid structure for The Lion King. Okay, first thing we're getting, and it's kind of going to be hard to see here. So we know we're on the Pride Land, right? So it's set in the African savannah called the Pride Land. We know Simba is the young king, and we know he wants to be king. We learn that Scar is his uncle. We learn that he's got a dad called Mufasa. I have no idea how to spell that. I'm gonna call him Moose, okay? We learn that he's got kind of like a young friend, girlfriend, whatever, okay? And then we have to have some kind of inciting event, okay? The inciting event, I believe in Lion King, is when his father is killed. Okay, if you remember the big dramatic, the Scar grabs the dad and the dad falls back and the dad saves the kid, and then the dad almost gets saved, Scar kills, it's a whole thing, right? Okay, so we have exposition section, setting, we know where we are, characters, we know all the main characters, time, we kind of understand what's going on in the time frame. Okay, then we have a time jump here after the father is killed, an inciting event. All this stuff would kind of be our exposition and our inciting action event. Okay, after that, and this is where the bulk of the story happens, this would be the rising action stuff. So we have he meets the new friends out on like the plains, the dry arid plains. Okay. Oh man, what's the warthog and the other guy's name? I'm dying. I can't remember. The Hakuna Matata guys. I wish I had a class right now. You guys could help me remember all these names. I'm not great with names. Okay, so he meets his new friends. He learns to live in a different way. Time passes. He's out here with these guys. Nala, his girlfriend from the beginning, comes back in, has a confrontation. He's reminded of things, reminded of place, okay? After he's reminded of his place, he decides to go back home. When he goes back home, he confronts, along with the female lion, Scar, and all the hyenas. The big dramatic climactic moment of the story is Scar is killed by Simba. We have the nice symmetry of where the story begins to the big climactic moment, the big fire on the Pride Land. Immediately after Scar is killed, we have rain coming down. We have lions back in power. Okay, so lions come back, the rain comes down, things are going to regrow. And that regrowth thing is then also like conceptually mirrored with the resolution or the final section of the story, okay? And that would be Simba is now a dad of his own. His child is presented, so now we have a new lion prince that perhaps becomes the new lion king. So the story begins over here with exposition. We're on the Pride Lands and we have a bunch of animals and we have the circle of life. No talking in that first like 10 minutes, it's all the circle of life theme. After that, we have the dad gets killed. Simba goes on a journey. He brings him all the way back here to killing the uncle that had killed his father. In doing that, okay, he gives rebirth to the Pride Land here. In doing that as well, he has now maintained the circle of life. So the character starts out here as a baby in the exposition section. The character of Simba ends here with a clear resolution, right? He has maintained this circle of life thing. And by having a new cub, he has kind of in some way established the resolution of the story that you can't break the circle, and that circles maintain, and that circles go on, and that corrupt power will not be able to hold on, and that the righteous, justifiable power that he had here as a baby is now codified up here, and he can pass that on to his son. Okay, long story short, inverted checkmark of storytelling. We're going to see some more examples of essays that are doing this sort of thing. You're going to be crafting your own reflective memoir over Thanksgiving break, be thinking about these sorts of things, and I can put them all together. And for this sort of stuff here, be thinking about a good example you might have from your life that would fit within this, or at least one that you could take that's similar to this that we could then push and create to work into like this good narrative structure. Okay, so if you get these parts, make sure you come back in, check this stuff out. Okay, there's the bell. Okay, guys, have a good one.